Good afternoon. Welcome to the January 3rd meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission. Will we please call the roll?
Patrick Gaines.
Present.
Alan Brown.
Present.
Jennifer Bourne. Present. Heather Clemmer. Present. Neela Crank-Clements.
Present.
George Massey.
Present.
Jeffrey Parks.
Present.
Roland Tay.
Present.
Ian Zachritz.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Ask everyone to please turn off their cell phones, and if they need to take a call, please go outside. The Historic Preservation Officer will read the CAs into record, and then the commissioners will debate and take one of four actions. They may approve the CA, continue the proposal, deny with prejudice, which means the applicant may not reapply for at least 1 year, or deny without prejudice, which means the applicant may apply. Please remember that if your CA is approved, there is a 10-day waiting period for appeals. If you are denied, you may take your appeal to the Board of Adjustments, and staff will be happy to help you out with that. Office of the Historic Preservation Commissioner.
We have clarification from our attorney on saying that you're abstaining from voting versus recusing yourself from a vote, and I'll let Rita elaborate on that.
Hello. The City of Oklahoma City uses Robert's Rules of Order as our process guide, and Robert's Rules does not reference recusal, it references abstention. So we talked about it in our office and decided that we would uniformly advise all of our boards and commissions that we would say the same thing when we need to leave the room because of a conflict or perceived conflict, and that would be that you would abstain from participation in the item, and once you abstain, that you would, if it were your item to present, then of course you would go to the podium and make the presentation, but if it was because of a conflict, then you would leave the room. Now that brought up other questions regarding quorum. And of course, this body never has that issue. We're always present. But in the event there was a quorum issue, if you abstain from participating in the item, you would not be counted as present for purposes of that item. So if there was not a quorum, no action could be taken on that application. Are there any questions about that?
Thank you.
Okay.
And then the one other item I wanted to mention is that this is something that is up and available all the time, but just wanted to call people's attention to the fact that we frequently have open positions on the city's various commissions, committees, boards, and there is information about that on our website, as well as an application form that people can submit if they're interested in serving on one of those. Different commissions and committees have different requirements that their members have to meet. But if you know someone who's interested in being involved in the city in that way, please feel free to give them that information. Over the next year, we'll have some openings on the HP Commission. So if you know someone that would be interested in serving, please pass that information along. And we're happy to provide more information for anyone that's interested.
And they can also submit that application for a spot, even if that spot's not open at that time.
Right, they can submit applications
So you have
as an ongoing process, and they keep them on file for about a year, and will be considered for any of those positions that are available.
Thank you. Acceptance of minutes from the December 4th, 2013 meeting. Do any commissioners have any comments or questions?
And our code enforcement officer is out this week for the holidays, so he's not available. You do have the report in your packet, so if you have questions about any of those, you can pass those along to staff, and we'll follow up and get back with you.
Okay. Continuous announcements and requests.
One request for HPCA 13-00157 at 513 Northwest 18th Street. To continue to March 5th. And then we have a new request for HPCA 13-00190 to continue to February 5th. So I guess we need a separate vote for each of those because they're to two different dates.
What's the second one?
It is 13-190 item 4.
Okay, we have a motion for continuance for HBCA 13-157.
So moved.
We have a motion for approval by Neela Crank Clements. Do we have a second?
Second.
Can we just specify to
To
March 5th?
continue.
Sorry.
Do what? Motion to continue.
To March 5th.
Oh, I'm sorry, March 5th.
Okay, we have a second by Jennifer Bourne. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Do we have a motion for continuance on item 13-00190?
Move to continue 190 to the February 5th docket.
Okay, we have a motion for continuance by Jeffrey Parks. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Jennifer Bourne. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Any new requests?
Nope.
No. Okay. Public hearings.
We have one dilapidated structure, HPCA 13-00189 at 433 Northwest 24th Street, Jefferson Park, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Mary Martin by City of Oklahoma City Code Enforcement Division of Development Services for certificate of appropriateness to provide a recommendation to City Council regarding dilapidated shed and fence. This is kind of an odd application because these are clearly not historic, and if the property owner was to apply, we would administratively approve removing these, but because the city is doing it, it has to go through the dilapidated process, and we don't have an administrative route for that. So that's why you're seeing this.
Okay. Do we have anybody from the public on this that would like to be heard? Any commissioners have any questions? Comments?
I move that we forward the comments set forth in paragraph D of the staff report.
Okay, we have a motion by Roland Tague to forward comments to the city. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Neela Crank Clements. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
We have one consent docket item, HPCA 13-00192 at 805 Northwest 18th Street, Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of Larissa and Brad Medora for certificate of appropriateness to remove and install windows.
Anybody have any questions or comments about the consent docket?
I think that we need to add to the findings in the staff report that the windows are deteriorated beyond repair before we could approve removal and replacement.
Okay, is that a motion?
I move approval of HPCA 13-192 with the specific findings set forth in the staff report and the additional finding that the windows are deteriorated beyond repair.
Okay, we have a motion for approval with modification by Roland Tague for 13-00192. Yep, 192. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Jeffrey Parks. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Cases for individual consideration.
HPCA 13-00142 at 615 Northwest 24th Street, Sale, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Chris Lauer by David Ledbetter for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace driveway with retaining wall and steps required, 2, install paving in backyard required, and 3, install fence and gate required. And the commission heard this application in November and asked for some additional information, and that's back before you today.
Good afternoon. I'm Chris Lauer, and I own and manage the property. I'll go back and give you a little bit of history first. I acquired this property about 5 years ago, and we applied for a CA for the fence and driveway in 2012. Got the CA. did the fence within the time frame of that CA. Unbeknownst to me, the CA expired after a year. We commenced work on the driveway about a month or two after the expiration of the previous CA. So once we got into it, we knew there had been water damage to the building, the garage apartment, but it had a giant hole in the roof, so I attributed most of the water damage to the roof leak. Once the contractor demolished the old driveway and started grading for the new one, he pointed out that the driveway sloped toward the garage, not away from the garage. So he did, and I instructed him to do the only prudent thing we could do, and that was make sure that the driveway sloped away from the building. When we did that, it dropped it in the middle of the driveway, approximately a foot, and we ended up with what we have right now. If you look on the fourth page of the handout that we've passed out, there's a lovely pair of gates there that, again, were done within the year of that CA. Obviously, if we'd known the driveway was going to drop 12 inches, we would not have built the gates thusly, and we are going to take the gates out. We don't want to include those in our application for the current CA. Basically, we're talking about water here, and after we got brought back into this, I engaged the services of Tim Johnson, who's a civil engineer, and I'll let him tell you about his credentials if you want to hear about that. But he came out and did a survey for us, and we've looked at both topographic features and a survey from the slab of the garage apartment, which I'm guessing was built in the late 40s, early 50s, because it's slab construction and it had wiring in metal conduit. So it was not built when the original 1918 structure was built. And whoever decided to do that basically situated it about a foot or two too low. And I think we can prove that. But anyway, we did the job the only way we felt we could do it. There is a 1.7 foot drop between the slab of the garage apartment and the street, and it's a 130 foot driveway. So if you do the math on that, it's a 1.3% slope to the driveway, and I think most engineers will tell you that a 2% grade is about the minimum acceptable grade for draining. So we don't have what we would like, but we have all we can get, basically, with what we've done. And since the driveway is about a foot from the house and also a foot from the neighbor's fence, we had to either put, you can call them tall curbs or short retaining walls, to maintain the integrity of the house and the integrity of the fence. So after the pictures of what we have, I made copies of, this was just a drive around last Sunday through Paseo and Mesta and Heritage, of a lot of historic tall curbs or short retaining walls that have been done, obviously originally and some more recently. When you build on hills, you've got to deal with those changes in elevation, and you can either berm it or you can retain it. And like I say, we didn't feel there was no way that a berm was going to work along the neighbor's fence or as close to the house as we were. And the only way to keep this property from continuing to flood is to drain it. I'll also point out that 25th Street is approximately 8 feet higher than 24th Street. All of our neighbors to the north, if you're looking out the back windows, they're sitting up a full 8 feet higher than this property. So there is a rolling slope across the entire back of the property that when it rains, all of that water comes down toward 24th Street. And then for what it's worth, you head continuing south on either Dewey or Lee on either side of us, and they both go uphill to 23rd. So 24th is a valley, and this property sits right in the middle of that valley. And like I say, the historic building was built a little over a foot higher than the low point on the street. And in the past, that has not been enough to drain it. And this was
Okay, let's
the only
see.
way we felt we could.
Commissioners, does anybody have specific questions they would like to ask Mr. Lauer about the application?
Chris, so the way you've designed this, it will drain to the
It will drain.
street?
It's a 1.3% slope, which, like I say, it's not ideal. We wish either the house was built higher or 24th Street was lower, but that's the elevation distance. That's the elevation difference across that distance. And here, I don't know if anybody wants to...
Let me ask you one
This
other-
was attached to your report, but it's way too small to read. These are the actual elevation numbers. Like I say, we only got a 1.7 drop from the corner of the garage to where the street starts.
So what is the slope from here to here then?
I'm sorry?
If the slope is from here to here, is a foot?
1.7 feet. Well, this is about halfway.
Right. And then this is elevated how?
Actually, the picture might show better than that.
My reason is because I'm just wondering why there wasn't a consideration for a French drain along that side of the house to gather the water and then bring it out to the street that way instead of concrete.
The problem is that this was higher, so not only do you have all the water coming down from 25th Street, we would actually have water coming down the driveway toward this. And with only 1.7 feet of drop, I don't think that with the French drain, you'd have enough flow to get, I don't know how you come out on the 24th.
You go this way and then you bring it down this way. The only reason I know that is because I did it for my own house because I had the same exact thing happen there. We didn't have a huge driveway, but there was slope coming into our house here, which I'm assuming this is doing that.
Yeah, our problem is the slope. This sloped from the center of the driveway
Back.
to the garage
Correct.
by about almost a foot. We were a foot high here.
Okay. So right.
It's not a problem of going toward the house. This house is higher. This
Okay.
house is built about.
Okay, so it's back here, and I
It's back here.
apologize that you did say that. Is there a way to then bring the water, if it was higher here and it's sloping like this, correct? Is that how it was originally, and now it's all coming back this way? So you needed to build this up, correct?
Couldn't build it up. The slab is where it is. The problem is this is 1.7 feet above that.
Right.
And things had been built up higher than the elevation of this. Could I introduce Tim and have him show the topo?
I guess my only concern was that instead of building more concrete to move water faster, I understand that it would have been better potentially to have something natural to absorb it and then do all of that resurfacing and moving the water back here rather than
Right.
take
But
away from the
The problem,
historic-
as I understand it from, with drains, is drains get plugged, drains...
Correct.
I mean, this is fail-safe, and that would be subject to... And again, with the drop we have, by the time you put a French drain in the ground, and then you have to get a slope on the pipe,
Right.
you end up underneath 24th Street by the time it comes out here.
I'll revert to the engineer.
And
But,
yeah.
thank you for bringing that.
Mr. Chair, my name is Tim Johnson. I'm with Johnson & Associates. We're a local civil engineering surveying company, and this map probably explains it the best, and it's maybe a little hard to read, but this is the Oklahoma City contour map, and the lot that we're dealing with, 615, is what's outlined in black here. Here's the main structure. Here's the garage apartment we're talking about. This line right here, the gold line, is a contour line. And what this contour does by bowing back this way means that this is really a hole in the ground. And the water historically was supposed to go this way. But you can see by the buildup in the 2 yards, the trash and the unkept yards, it's blocked the flow from really historically going that way, which it it doesn't have a lot of fall. This is 2 foot of fall across 150 feet. So this little bow right here indicates a ridge. So here's the high spot, here's the low spot. And so you can see this is the hole, and the only way to take that out was to break through that ridge and allow that to come out. There's no underground storm sewer within a reasonable length that we could grade to gravity-wise. And as Chris alluded to, had we been involved before the driveway was built, we would have not recommended a French drain system simply because the kind of rains that we've had recently, they won't absorb the water fast enough. And with the little margin that we have in that building, the likelihood of the building flooding would be great. So the only way to really get it out, it would be to use the drive as a flume and as a paved flume to get it out.
So Tim, you're saying that the water from the north
This all comes down into that hole right
down
there.
to the hole?
Yep. Yeah, the ridge going this way this is the low, and all this water is coming into that low. So as Chris identified, this house is about 8 feet higher than this house, and all that water comes down into that low. So it's a concentrated amount of several acres of drainage that comes, and you have a high-intensity rainfall like we've seen, 3 or 4 inches in an hour. It would just inundate a drain system, unless it was large enough like a street system.
Did the other houses have problems with, or just, looks like that is the low spot, though?
This just happens to be the lowest spot in the system right there.
The house immediately east of us does not have any paving. It's gravel and dirt. The house here at 607, actually, I think there's a picture in your packet that they prepared that shows that they have a little retaining wall next to their driveway exactly like we're proposing. And it looks to me like it's original.
So the garage is the only structure that has been flooding. The house is
The house is several feet above.
most of the garages, neighbors, seems like they always build them too low. I don't know why. Another 8 inches would have helped a lot, so. Yeah.
Just so I can learn, as you're a civil engineer, so having a French drain or some kind of drainage system along the back of the pit that we're talking about along the garage and holding that there and then bringing it in the ground under the current, if we could go back in time, under the current driveway, could you have not done that? That there's too large of water?
No, there's not enough fall. If, by the time you bury a pipe, and let's say in this case, and you
Even
want
if
to
it's
put...
built up?
But it wasn't, and you had to live with the garage. If you went back in time before they built the garage and raised the garage 8 inches, like Mr. Brown suggested, would have solved a lot of woes. In this particular case, given the garage was at a fixed elevation, if we were to put a 12-inch pipe in there
Right.
and ran it flat all the way out, it would be under the street grade by the time it came out.
Okay, that's what you're saying.
Because you only had 1.7 feet,
Right.
To fall,
so
By
that
the time you
grade on
cover the
that,
pipe and take it out, you're
your
underground.
pipe's going to be,
right.
I mean, well, 12-inch pipe's already going to be a foot down. So.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you slope it, it's going to be deeper than that. You should have to slope it.
And I would suggest that because of all the drainage area, it would take a larger than a 12-inch pipe to carry the water. That's how much water's coming there.
Can we show them the other side of that?
We put this together just as an example of the old historic driveway. You can see that they had done some repair, looks like Sack Creek kind of repair, and the neighbor's drive next to it is just gravel, and that's that fence line there. So, and this is the new drive, and what we're trying to show is that it really doesn't deter from the historicness of the original structure.
And the reason it was a little hard to tell that the driveway sloped down to the garage is there were huge cracks in it and grass growing up out of it. You couldn't stand back and notice that it actually tilted toward the garage. But the garage had not been inhabited in at least 20 or 30 years. It looked straight up.
In the photo on the right, can you tell me where the street is?
Right here.
So 24th Street,
Actually,
you're standing in the street, is that right?
that's the street line right there.
So is that a large area of asphalt paving just?
Right, asphalt pavings underneath the shadow.
And what's to the right? And of where you're standing? Is that more asphalt?
This is gravel up here, this is
Gotcha.
a little bit of asphalt, broken up asphalt.
Okay. The neighbor's driveway?
Did you consider permeable paving as a way to soak up that water versus send it all out to the street?
We didn't really, I mean, the historic driveway was solid all the way to the garage, except for the cracks. And
It would have to be concrete, I think, by our guidelines.
It wouldn't move the water.
So
was it?
we don't have room to allow any sort of permeable paving in the guidelines, do
my
we?
issue with that is knowing what I know about the topography now. I'm not sure that the ground between the permeable wouldn't have the absorption capacity to handle what 25th Street and everything in there that has the potential of throwing at it.
You needed a drainage ditch.
We need to drain it, we need to not try to soak it all up.
I think it's,
The city code actually doesn't allow impermeable parking surfaces.
Right.
If they're
You'd have to
already
go to the
there,
Board
they
of
can
Adjustment.
stay, but they want
Because
hard
pouring more
surface.
concrete doesn't solve the problem. I mean, it makes it worse. So I was just
The
curious.
replacement of this driveway really didn't increase the impervious area. The impervious area was already there. The lowering it down, sloping it down, didn't increase the amount of runoff that would occur during rainfall.
Does anybody from the public have any comments they'd like to make? Okay, do we have any further questions by commissioners? Comments?
Just one question on the new steps that were poured there along the driveway going up to the house. The run is different for each of those steps as compared to the original steps. Was there a reason for that?
There is, the top step is a step. It is the same run as the one above it. Since we weren't widening or narrowing the driveway, given where the elevation of it fell, we decided to make that I would call it more of a landing than a step, just to make even step-ups, even though they weren't evenly spaced this way. We would almost have to take out the whole step system and start over to do 3 equal steps.
I'm looking at this, we're required to look at it as if the work has not been
Right.
done.
Right.
And I don't know that we would have approved that configuration if you were brought it to us before you had completed the work. So,
Right. I would be open to any other ideas for a workable configuration. We just don't want people
Well, if they made that-
stumbling up or down it.
If they made that run shorter than the first, it would be cut in.
It would be inset instead of flush.
So you'd either have to
So
have
you
a
can either-
retaining wall there, or so it would be 6 inches back.
personally, I think that would have been preferable to have them all the same, just from a tripping hazard, nothing else. I see why you did it, but
to
can I ask
remove
one
that.
question about the grading again? What is the minimum grade for drainage on a drive like this normally?
There's not a set code requirement for a drive slope. We'd like to see 1% or greater.
And what is this again?
This is a little over 1%.
Over 1%, slightly. How much?
Chris had mentioned 2%. That's good if you're not concrete, like if you're asphalt or something more pervious. You like to have a steeper grade to get the water off.
So this is 1.3,
1.3.
so about 30% more than might need to be.
The issue is they had to break the ridge. Once they broke the ridge, it could be steeper down to the historic gutter.
Once you broke the ridge, it could have flattened out a little bit too, and maybe not be quite as drastic in the front, possibly?
And again, we shot all down the driveway.
They had to break the ridge between that contour and that contour.
Right.
So by the time they got to this contour, they would have already been...
That's my question. Once you did that, could it have flattened out and then gone steeper to the street, been flatter from the back to the
At
front?
that percent of grade difference, it might have made maybe an inch difference.
inch, okay.
Maybe an inch.
We were at 1.191 here, and it started out at 1.19, 1.45, so we are about 6 inches lower here, halfway through. So it does slope a little bit more in the front
guess my question, it could have been a little flatter, but not much.
Not much.
I do see a unique circumstance based on the grading. There's no other place for the water to go. I don't know if it's the only solution, though.
Katie, the original application was just for concrete work in the backyard, correct? It had nothing to do with the driveway? Or
No,
did
it was the driveway.
No,
It was the
it did include the driveway, but it didn't include, it was just a replacement in kind of the driveway to
Which is what we
put that
thought we
new
were doing
concrete.
until we got into it and discovered the grade issue.
Okay,
We didn't have a survey done before we started the driveway.
okay. Thank you.
Chris, I assume your parking pads are in the back so that you can use that for housing?
Yes,
Okay.
that's the plan. I'm opening new businesses down there and feel like a lot of people are going to want to live down there soon. Thank you.
Any further questions or comments by commissioners?
I'm okay with the drive. I've driven by several times, and we saw this the first time in November and again this week, and I don't feel like the concrete or the retaining walls detract from the character of that block or the neighborhood. I do wish that we could do something different with the steps that were poured, maybe go down, I don't know the technical, how to say this technically, but I guess maybe have 3 steps and then take away that stoop. Is anybody, right, yeah.
Are you saying you'd like to make the stoop the same as the other steps? So there'd be...
Something so that they're they match more the original steps.
What if we painted them red?
Well, I'd like to see the bottom tread the same as the others and not create this stoop, which to me
Right.
is just a long tread. It's not long enough to be different.
Right, it's not long enough so that it looks like a stoop. It looks like a step with a very
And if
long
it was the
tread.
same length, it would break up that long retaining wall curb.
So it just needs to recess back a little bit to maintain the same
So what do you do about
tread.
the erosion of, on that point right there? If you bring that back, you're going to have a gap between that curb.
That'd be concrete, just
Yeah, but it's concrete and it's still going down. I mean, there's still a grade.
they drain out.
You're not going to have a problem there.
You have to turn the retaining wall back.
Well, that's my question, though. We would have to give them approval to continue the retaining wall that some people already had an issue with.
Just turn back to about 6 inches.
So I just wanted to point that out, that if you're going to require to move that back, then
You see what he's saying? On the sides of the steps.
otherwise he's going to lose his
Goes from the
flower bed.
house.
He just has to return it back to the step.
So the option is leave it as it is or
Add more curb.
add wings to the retaining wall.
Yeah, right, wings, that's good.
And what would you do about the first 2 steps?
You just leave them. The ones that, the original steps?
That leading up to the original,
You mean the new steps?
the new steps?
The new steps, I think that's kind of what we were talking about. We would make it, bump that one, the first step back so that the run is the same as the other 3 steps. The other 2 steps. And then there's a porch, yeah.
Is there a wing on the retaining wall out between the steps and the yard? It's not visible on this.
On the south side of the steps.
Yeah.
No, it just berms
Down
down
into-
to the landing, I'd call it, or stoop, as it does from the flower bed on the other side. So, I I don't have a problem taking the step back and turning the retaining walls back.
Then we're adding more concrete with more retaining wall. So I don't really know that that's a good option either. I think I'm leaning toward leaving it.
Don't you think this is probably a unique circumstance type?
I think when the concrete blends in, it'll be better. It won't be so stark. Okay, do we have a motion or further questions? Motion? Need a motion or it'll fail.
Working on it.
That's all I need to hear.
When we started this a little bit ago, did you say something about the fence or the gate?
Yes. The current CA asks for those gates to be located. The current CA asks for the gates to be there, and I don't see any way to make gates work. It's a narrow driveway. If we bring them down to the grade of the driveway, it's going to be too narrow for them to hinge. So we're asking to amend the plan to not include the gates. I wish we could have gates there, but I
Just the
don't
fence
see
or the-
any good way to do it.
The fence or just the gate?
Just the gates. Just the gates. I mean,
And
I
just
don't know if
one
we
gate,
want to
right?
leave the foot of fence on either side.
So the east-west fence and gate, you're wanting to take that all off?
I think so.
Okay, so item number 3, we will
Yes.
pull item number 3.
Well, we don't want to totally pull item number 3 because that's also for
The fence along the
the
back.
fence.
All right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think the previous CA included the fence and the gate. This
Yes.
application has the revised site plan that shows the gate gone.
Oh,
So I don't think
then
we need
never
to
mind,
amend
I'm sorry.
anything with that.
We had already taken it
Some
off,
confusion between
yeah.
the different
Okay.
versions of what's been applied for, so.
Sorry for the confusion.
So we're just really kind of removing the wording from number 3. It should just be install fence.
Yes. There is another gate on the property as part of the fence.
Okay.
So we can leave the word gate.
Okay.
But it does not include the gate across the driveway that you see on your screen now.
Yes, sir.
All right. I move to approve, let's see, can we catch 2 and 3 first?
Yeah.
Okay. Move to approve HPCA 13-00142, items 2 and 3, with specific findings that the proposed work will not have an adverse effect on the historic character of the property or district, complies with all the relevant guidelines and sections of Municipal Code 2010 as referenced in Section C of the staff report.
Okay, we have a motion on 13-142 for approval of items number 2 and 3.
Second.
A second by Neela Crank Clements. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
I move to approve HPCA 13-00142, item number 1, with unique circumstances. The unique circumstance being that there's no natural drainage from the backyard and that there's insufficient grade differentiation between the backyard and 24th Street to provide for underground drainage options.
Okay, we have a motion for approval.
And find that with the specific findings numbered 1, 2, and 3 in the staff report of Section D.
Okay, motion for approval on 13-142, item number 1 by Jeffrey Parks. We have a second?
Second.
Second by Jennifer Bourne. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you.
HPCA 13-00153 at 818 Northwest 25th Street, Paseo, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Craig Walker by Carlos Cameron for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace windows required, and 4, replace railing elective. And the commission heard this application in December and approved a number of items, but continued the replacement of the windows and the replacement of the railing. The railing, they've come back because they're not required by code to meet a certain height for safety. They've come back with a height that matches the historic railing and would just be decorative. And staff has recommended approval for that. On the windows, we still do not have documentation that shows a true divided light product. So I think they're working on that and on finding something that meets their budget and is going to meet what the commission has asked for, but we don't have anything yet.
Okay, do we have anybody here on this application? Okay, seeing nobody here on this application, do we have a motion for a continuance on item number 1?
I move to continue item number 1 of HPCA 13-153 to the, what meeting would be appropriate? Maybe April or something like
I think we may want to just do February.
that. February what day?
February 5th.
Okay.
Okay, I have a motion for a continuance on item number 1 of 13-153 to the February 5th meeting by Roland Tague. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Jennifer Bourne. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Item number 4, replace railing. Do we have any comments or questions to staff about that? Do we have a motion?
I move approval of HPCA 13-153, item 4, adopting the specific findings in the staff report and the findings in our motion.
We have a motion for 13-153 for item number 4 by Roland Tague. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Jennifer Bourne. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
HPCA 13-00164 at 620 Northwest 39th Street, Crown Heights, Ward 2. Consideration and possible action on application of Tim and D. Leftwich for certificate of appropriateness to 2 replace windows with sliding glass door required and 5 replace awning. And this is required, but it's actually elective. That work hasn't been completed yet. The awning replacement is something that could be approved administratively, but we just kind of have treated this whole project as one package, so that's why it's included here. The commission previously approved several other items here and asked them to come back with a different product for the door, and they've now found a door that matches what was approved on the rear of the house at the
Bottom left.
first floor. Yep.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Dee Leftwich.
Welcome. Do we have any questions or comments by commissioners?
I move approval of HPCA 13-164, items 2 and 5, with the specific findings in the staff report.
It's a beautiful sliding glass door. I had to say that. It matches the French door perfectly, so.
And the findings that the proposed work will not have an adverse effect on the historic character of the district or property and complies with all the relevant guidelines and sections of the municipal code and section C and D of the staff report.
Okay, we have a motion for approval on 13-164, items 2 and 5 by Roland Tague. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Jennifer Bourne. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Number 4, HPCA 13-00190 was continued. Number 5, HPCA 13-00191 at 2115 North Chartel, Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of Samir and Nahaya Khalil by Samantha Khalil for certificate of appropriateness to remove windows and infill and replace windows required.
Do we have anybody here from the public on this?
Hi, I'm Mark Khalil.
Do we have any any questions by commissioners?
Sure, just one question. So the original openings, they had original windows, they removed those, they infilled those and put new windows in. Now they're going to take out those windows and the infill and go back to the original opening size?
Not quite.
Yes.
The original openings.
Yes, no.
The original openings, maybe I misunderstood, I'm sorry. The original opening at the front porch was infilled and had one aluminum-clad window there, well, an aluminum window. That infill has been completely removed. No additional infill will be proposed.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you. And I move to approve HPCA 13-00191. Item 1, to remove windows and infill and replace windows with the specific findings that the proposed work will not have an adverse effect on the historic character of the district or property and complies with all relevant guidelines and sections of the Municipal Code 2010 as referenced in Section C of the staff report.
Okay, we have a motion for approval, 13-191, items number 1, by Mila Crank-Clements.
Second.
We have a second by Roland Tagg. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Great job on that house. It's a cool house. Thank you. Glad you guys are working on it.
HPCA 13-00193 at 224 Northwest 20th Street, Heritage Hills, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of Charlotte Harrison by Larry Herzl of HSE Architects for certificate of appropriateness to 1, demolish existing garage, elective, 2, construct new garage, elective, 3, install exterior lighting at new garage, elective, and 4, replace driveway, elective, 5, relocate fence, elective. And I will just note that you have a comment from a neighboring property owner that should be at all of your seats, just asking that care be taken in demolition and new construction not to damage adjacent trees on the neighbor's property.
Seems reasonable. How are you?
Good. I'm Larry Herzl with HSE Architects, representing the owner.
You're the new owner of this house?
The new owner of the house, correct. Charlotte Harrison.
Did we have any comments by commissioners?
The brick wainscoting that you proposed for the new, would that be something to be considered to remove instead of, and just having it be the wood siding all the way?
We would. The siding originally did go all the way to the ground, and actually on the surrounding property, you can kind of see in this photograph on the south and the east, the existing grade line is actually above the garage floor line, and we believe that's probably what added to the termite problem. The termites got all the way to the rafters in this garage, so we're proposing to come back with a brick wainscot of about, well, approximately 2 feet above the floor that would act somewhat as a retaining wall and a barrier to the existing grade. The garage did not originally have that. It looked like the siding went actually below the grade there. The existing residence has probably a 3-foot high brick wainscot, and we would propose to match that.
My only reason for asking is because the garage is supposed to act as a secondary structure.
Correct.
With making it kind of
Agreed.
fancy.
No, and we're not trying to make it certainly any fancier than the house or than it is right now, but it is somewhat of a maintenance item that, I mean, we're worried about lawnmowers, weed eaters, sprinkler systems getting up against that existing wood, so that would, the brick would help mitigate some of that problem.
So you're doing a new garage.
A new garage.
Quite a new garage. Are you raising the floor level?
Not much, because we weren't going to change the level of the driveway. We would probably raise it, I don't know, 6 inches or so.
How far is it below grade? In the back?
It's probably a foot on the south side.
I wouldn't think putting brick veneer on a wood frame below grade would be a good idea.
No, we'll have a concrete stem wall behind that
Concrete
brick on
stem
that
wall
side.
behind
We
the
would.
brick.
Right. So, right, yeah, in that photograph, you can see that they did try to put some flashing there.
So does this driveway drain away from the garage?
Yes, it does. It runs into the water goes to the street.
It has about a 6-foot grade, I think. Further questions or comments?
I have a note about the reflectivity of the glass in the windows of the new structure. Do you know whether it satisfies the guidelines?
We would be installing glass that would coincide with the guidelines, yes.
Okay.
Katie, do we need to have that? The cut sheet doesn't mention the reflectivity. Will the applicant need to provide something that identifies that?
Is it just clear glass? or-
Yes, it is clear glass.
Okay, as long as we have, I think, verification that they're using just clear glass, we don't need like a spec sheet for clear glass from the manufacturer necessarily, as long as we have that
Right.
noted in the...
We are not proposing low E or tinted glass on this.
And I have a note under item 2, construct garage, page 7 of 12 in the staff report. It says the trim boards are indicated to match the existing, though existing has not been detailed. Do we need documentation of what the existing is? This is, I guess, the trim boards on the garage.
Staff can work with the architect towards getting those measurements detailed.
Are you sure that's not a burden? Should we get,
I think this is a small enough detail that we can handle that between now and the time that the CI should be presented.
Am I correct that the shingles proposed do not comply with guidelines? But we're allowing, you're suggesting approval of that because it would mimic the shingles on the house?
That is correct. The guidelines recommend an upgrade in shingle, but this particular house currently has a 3-tap shingle.
I think maybe we should include a unique circumstance for approving a shingle that's not allowed, and it seems reasonable that they should be able to match the house.
Right. I think the owner would be very happy to do that, and we'll just wait for the next hailstorm to replace the shingles on the house to match the garage then.
Won't be long. It's
No.
Oklahoma.
Larry, on the brick wainscot issue, I kind of agree with Jennifer. The original didn't have that, and it mimics the house.
Correct.
It's supposed to be as original. You're doing a concrete stem wall, and where it's below grade, you're extending it up. Could you not do that around the parts, so you basically have wood siding, and you extend the concrete stem wall up 8 inches or something?
Right, we could certainly do that. Now, that would still not take care of weed eaters and lawnmowers, because the two neighbors do have lawn going right up to the garage.
Well, if the stem wall was, say, 8 inches above grade and then wood, that I think the weed eaters would.
Right, we could do that.
Just a thought. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I like that. I think the brick seems out of place just in the overall character of the district and particularly this property, I'd rather see just the concrete stem wall as Alan suggests.
And we could do that. I mean, could we go ahead and actually put a gravel bed around the outside of the garage so you couldn't
That's
get
just
a...
landscaping.
I think the commission has no preference one way or another on.
Okay.
No.
No.
Okay, we have a motion?
You guys ready? I'll do it. So I move that we, so I guess we have to do two, because the constructed garage would have a modification, what is it?
Have one to tear the garage down, that would be one motion,
Okay.
seems like, and then at least one other motion.
Okay, I move we approve HPCA 00193, item 1. Excuse me a second, I've got to go back and forth. Item 1, with specific finding, the proposed work will not have an adverse effect on the historic character of the district or property and complies with all relevant guidelines in section of the Municipal Code 2010, as referenced in Section D of the staff report.
This is a tear down. You got to go to the demolition standards, we're not a...
What did I do? I just read the wrong one, I'm sorry. I read the wrong one. Item 1, to demolish garage, let me change that motion. With the specific finding that the proposed work will have an adverse effect on the historic character of the district or property, but is necessary because of an imminent threat to public health and safety, and complies with all relevant guidelines in section of Municipal Code 2010, as referenced in Section D of the staff report. Apologize for reading that.
Okay, we have a motion on 13-193, item number 1 by Alan Brown. We have a second?
Second.
Second by Ann Zacharitz. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
So you want to go to the construct a new garage next? They're not in the same order.
Seems like we have a modification.
Modification. So
Or I guess a condition.
is that what's called now, condition?
Condition's the word of the day.
So I move we approve HPCA 00193, item 2. Item 2, let me make sure I read the right one. With a specific finding that additional information is required from the applicant. Wait a second. No, we don't need that.
Larry, do you really want to comply with the shingle section? Change your shingle?
Yes, I think the owner would have no problem. Yeah, you'd like a...
I mean, it doesn't, if you want to match the garage to the house, I don't think anyone, at least I don't have any issue with it, and no one else seems to voice that, but if you want to, but if we do, we ought to have some unique circumstance, namely the house shingles are different.
Right, we would certainly, strive to match as closely as we could in color, but then make a heavier architectural grade asphalt shingle for the garage, and then I guess we would have to come back in order to change the shingles on the house to match it.
If you do that someday, you would. But if you have a hailstorm, I think it can be administratively approved.
Okay.
So,
Right, I think the owner would certainly be amenable to doing that.
So we don't, my idea of a unique circumstance isn't necessary.
Say again.
No unique circumstance would be necessary,
So it's just approval with conditions?
but conditions.
So I move we approve item, I think I started out, item 2, construct new garage with the condition that the brick wainscot be eliminated and concrete stem wall approximately 8 inches above grade
Right?
be provided with wood siding above.
And the shingles will be in compliance with the guidelines.
And the shingles shall be in compliance with the guidelines.
And staff will
Well, Katie's
I
got,
hate these complicated.
Staff will provide, the applicant will provide documentation of the trim boards
And all the other revisions.
and all the other stuff.
You could just say with documentation to be submitted to staff. And that'll cover it.
And the documentation be submitted to staff.
Okay, we have a motion.
Anybody else have any amendments?
We have a motion for approval of 13-193, item number 2, with conditions, recommendations by Alan Brown. We have a second by Roland Tague. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Well, we need to do 3, 4, and 5 real quick.
Okay.
So I move we approve HPCA 00193, items 3, 4, and 5.
Four and five are together.
4 and 5. 4 and 5, to replace driveway and relocate fence with a specific finding, I read first, that the proposed work will not have an adverse effect on the historic character of the district or property and complies with all relevant guidelines and sections of the Municipal Code 2010 as referenced in Section D of the staff report.
We have a motion for approval.
I think that
4 and 5.
the specific findings on page 10 have to be modified because some of those talk about wainscoting and brick concrete stem walls and so forth. And the roof.
4 and 5?
We're talking about the
The driveway and the fence?
Okay.
The staff report does include recommended conditions for item 3, the exterior lighting, if you want to include those on item 3.
This is just for 4 and 5.
Okay.
Motion for approval on 13-193, items 4 and 5 by Alan Brown. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Neil Crank Clements. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
So then we have move approval HPCA 00193, item 3. Item 3. With the following conditions. The specific findings of proposed work with the agreed-upon conditions will not have an adverse effect on the historic character of the district or property. The items comply with all relevant guidelines sections of the Municipal Code 2010, as referenced Section D of the staff report, conditions that the size of proposed coach lights are based on the scale drawings of west elevation, that no floodlights will be installed, but that a coach light as described is approved at the pedestrian door.
Okay, we have a motion for approval of 13-193, item number 3 by Alan Brown. We have a second?
Second.
Second by Ian Zacharias. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. You're done for the day.
HPCA 13-00194 at 529 Northwest 25th Street, Paseo, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application of J. Krupp by Sam Gresham for certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct house elective, 2, replace sidewalk elective, 3, install curved walkway elective, and 4, relocate and widen driveway elective. The commission previously reviewed work to a house that is at what used to be the rear of this lot. The commission also reviewed the splitting of this lot into 2, so now that house is on its own very small lot, and this is a very small vacant lot in the front of it. So you've seen some of this property before, but under a different address. And this is the same applicant that we've worked with on the adjacent structure as well.
My name is Sam Gresham. I'm the architect on this project, and I have some sketches that were done early, so they don't reflect exactly what the building is proposed to be, but it is close enough to represent something that might give you an idea. There's only 5, so. The lot is tiny. I mean, it is half or 3/4 of, I guess, basically a 75 feet of a previously 150-foot lot. So it has that size was approved by this commission as well as the Planning Commission. So there is, a condition that comes as a consequence of making economic use of a lot of the size. So we have, well, maybe I shouldn't talk. Shouldn't you guys ask me questions? It is a lot, the intention of the contractor is to build a house, he's here today, to build a house on the property that he can sell, that has the appeal that he thinks would be marketable and create something appropriate and pleasing to a buyer, a potential buyer. And I think we've accomplished that. He's looking for more footage because there is a connection between, if it's very, very small, there's not much value per foot in the house. The size was necessarily made larger, and therefore the effort was to keep all that tucked in under the roof, so you see very little of the two-story portion from the street.
What's the square footage of the house?
1,600 feet. 1,600 feet. It's actually 4 bedrooms inside.
Yeah.
So
I have a lot smaller than that. Do we have any questions by commissioners?
What is the height of the ceiling, Sam, in that tall section?
it vaults up. It's about 14, 15 feet in the center. So
what style do you call this structure?
wouldn't you say it's kind of a prairie style? You know, the detailing comes from the houses surrounding it. I have used on other things that I've done a battered trim, window trim, and that's on this house. It's an angled trim. The detailing at the barge rafters are big, deep barge rafters, are 2x10s, big, heavy things. And then the open structure on the front porch, you know, is characteristic of that style. It's expressed structure, so to speak. It has exposed rafter tails and an exposed soffit. It has, well, the 1/1 windows are the owner's concern that it was more common in the neighborhood than divided light windows. So he asks that he had me change it, which is what differs in that rendering. He had me change the elevation to reflect 1/1. Single-hung windows, one light over one light. So.
Any other questions from commissioners? Comments?
I like it. It's the way that you, it's a little unusual, but to create the one-story appearance and hide the sort of two-story nature seems to work. That was the goal?
Yes.
It just seems difficult to get 4 bedrooms into this. I don't know.
They're up there. There's 3 up, 1 down. So
it's not a flex space. It's a loft. I mean, they're literally a second floor.
Yes.
The second floor plan is right there.
Right, okay.
I guess I'm confused of the elevations because I really, I don't know how they capture the character of the surrounding other residences. It's an awkward entry. The windows are out of scale, I think, comparatively to the other ones in the surrounding neighborhoods, from what I'm seeing.
Talk about the west. Which ones?
The
talking about the-
two-story large one south and west.
This one.
3050, that's a pair of 3050s. Is that 3-foot by 5-foot windows?
Just stacked like that? Are you on the west, right?
Well, you would stack them naturally. I just extended the trim all the way down so they're joined, in effect, vertically.
It's real.
I must have missed something, Sam, on the, those are two different, those are the versions of the same elevation?
Yeah, they're not.
Pardon me, could you repeat that?
These are 2 versions of the same elevation?
One was done for the height, the comparison. It was done early in my submission. The one below is the revision of the elevations without divided light. Those are 1/1
You're
windows.
proposing the bottom one?
Right, the one on top is just an illustration of the adjacent house. I measured the house next door, which is a new house done by, I guess, Oklahoma City
I
Housing
understand, but
Authority
this
or
one
somebody.
shows the multi-pane, this one doesn't.
That's right, that's because that was drawn, it was just for scale.
You're
as
proposing,
compared-
you're proposing not this one.
That one at the bottom, right, that is the, but there's a 6-foot height difference between the
Page
two
4 and
houses.
5. Multi-pane, non-multi-pane. Is that what you're talking about, Jennifer? Yeah. Well, usually the front is multi-pane and it goes to more simple in the back. So this is the south, that's the front.
Where's the front? That's right.
The south.
Well, it's a corner lot, so the south is
Front.
the front, but then you're also going to be able to see the west from the side street because it's on the corner.
So the west and the south are fronts.
There's a house just like this in Crown Heights on 42nd, I think, on the corner.
Well,
That has a corner.
the Cole House on 40th and Chartel goes across a large lot. It's a more contemporary, modern house there. He's named the hill that comes up Banana Hill, or Gorilla Hill, and because of the race, and it's a yellow house that stands out, but it's not a traditionally designed house that fits
Yeah, on the northeast corner?
northeast corner.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it seems, there are features about this that don't seem to be in keeping with the traditional design of the house, like the windows on the south elevation and, I guess, on the west elevation, and the...
What specifically?
Well, having the window pane, the solid window pane over the top of the two lower windows, it's not something that I've seen on a traditional designed home. And it would be the same way, Sam, over on the west elevation.
So you're suggesting the continuous trim on the west side, as you pointed out?
I mean, on the west side, I can understand having windows for the second floor and windows for the first floor, but not designed in a way so they have a sort of an appearance as one large window. And I think the front door across the corner is not something I've seen in this style of home, in this area. And I think infill housing is supposed to be at least somewhat consistent with the character of the neighborhood. That's just my non-architect
No, I think you're
opinion.
pretty accurate, because it doesn't have an architectural, because you don't know what the architectural style is. I think that's what makes it difficult. And you have a couple of features that say that this is a style of something within the neighborhood, but just putting a couple of those features onto an elevation doesn't make it it's awkward.
Well, the distinguishing characteristics are there that make any one of these houses this house. I mean, to the extent that the Roland's diagonal entry is, it's a gesture, it's a stylized piece. I did it over on 30th and Walker, Robert Lane's house. You approved it 6 months ago or so. It had a diagonal entry. It's just very contemporary, though, a lot more contemporary than this one. This house has features that are as much in terms of content as any of these houses on this street. I don't know that if you said, well, what makes any of these,
30th and Walker House would be on the southeast.
It's on the south, second from the corner.
Southwest.
South.
West.
West, yes.
Southwest.
Right, second from the corner.
Yeah.
Sam, I think this is an interesting house. I don't think it belongs in this neighborhood, specifically on this block, for some of the reasons that some of the other commissioners have identified. The front door orientation at an angle, the large window on the south side, the attached garage, the double wide driveway, the curvilinear walkway. There are a number of things that I just, I've been up and down the street a million times, and I don't see that this house really fits in with the character of that block. And those are the things that stood out to me.
I don't have such a problem with the attached garage, just simply because the lot doesn't lend itself
Well,
to a separate garage.
Sure, but the lot was purchased it was split, and when they split it, they knew the size that it would be, so perhaps the house is actually too big, and then there could be a detached garage. So they're really filling this lot with this 1,600 square foot house when maybe it would be more appropriate if it were a smaller home. I understand that you won't get as much money for a smaller home. Maybe it's not economically viable to do that. I do not think this house fits.
Excuse me, my name is Philip Krupp. I'm with Atlas Builders. We're trying to do something nice in this neighborhood where you had just pushed down a crack house where we're proposing to put this house now. And I understand, Sam already has a house in this neighborhood, so I'm really not understanding where you guys are coming from.
We look at not only the entire neighborhood, but the context of the house in that block.
Okay.
And for the reasons I've expressed, I do not feel that this house, as it is designed now, fits within the context of the character of that block.
I'm looking at the houses you have in the picture, and Sam has it.
It doesn't look like those. There are a number of features that are quite different from those houses. All of those houses have front doors that are at right angles to the street. This one does not.
Okay.
The windows are probably all 3050. I don't know what this one on the south side is, but it seems much larger, especially because of the transom above those windows. There is not a curvilinear sidewalk. I think one of those houses has that. The rest of them have sidewalks that are at right angles with the street. So there are a number of things that are quite different.
Okay, so if we change this angular front porch to a standard front porch and change this front window, that would
It's my interpretation of the guidelines, in my opinion as one commissioner, that the orientation of the front door should be at a right angle to the street, which is 25th Street. Have a sidewalk that goes from that front door stoop to the sidewalk that runs parallel with the street, rather than a curvilinear one.
Mm-hmm.
There are no other detached garages in the neighborhood. I don't think that one fits. And then you've got double wide paving on the driveway. So there are a number of things that I think that could be changed to better fit in with that block.
So if we change the front entrance to a right angle to the 25th, and change the sidewalk, as you say.
And then I listed a number of other things as well, you might remember.
Okay, so
it's not just one item, there are quite a few.
Okay, so if we
except for the detached garage issue, kind of agree because of the size of the lot. That's kind of a unique circumstance. Who split the lot? Did you guys?
They split the lot.
Okay.
So really, in essence, you created the problem.
Well, I disagree with that, because the alternative on that spot right there was you can try to create something on that lot or just leave it empty. The house that's already there, that's behind there in the back, you could have left that house there and had a great big huge front yard, but wouldn't have looked very normal. So I think they are trying to improve.
Well, I'm not saying that it's either this house or nothing. I mean, I think that a single-family home is certainly appropriate on that lot, but I don't think it's the one that's designed here.
Well, I understand that, but I think that's a different statement than you created your own problem. Now fit something in there that's small and, maybe not sellable. I mean,
I was talking about the garage.
Right.
It was just the garage. Of having it attached.
So except for the garage, which I think is caused by the size of the lot, so it kind of forces it to be more compact. I see things that you're talking about, but I don't think everything has to be a traditional exact, concept. You don't have to have a sidewalk perpendicular. I mean, but I'm not saying this is correct.
Well, it's not just one item. It's a conglomeration of several things that really kind of make it stand out like a sore thumb.
I don't think everything has to be exactly like the one next to it. There's a new house. It's on the corner. It's a compact lot. I think it could be changed. There's some things I would do if I was going to change it. But yes, maybe we ought to just ask them to resubmit considering some of the comments that we've made today. But I wouldn't eliminate
what
the
do you
concept.
see that you would change to make it consistent with more consistent with the guidelines?
Well, I kind of agree with let me just look at the site plan real quick. It's addressing the corner. I think I would probably have the sidewalk address the corner too, instead of coming from a curve from the driveway from the side. Most of the times the sidewalk would come directly from maybe it's at a diagonal or goes to the corner. The roof line, they're trying to sort of disguise the mass of the two-story to make it economically feasible. It needs to be larger than 800 square feet. They're trying to make it look like a one-story house would blend in with the others on the street. But I think that long sloped roof, I think I would probably do a taller roof and then a one-story roof, because that long sloped roof looks a little bit asymmetrical and kind of odd to me. These are all redesigning from up here. Didn't want to do that, but you asked. So I think I would, tweak it some, but I don't think the concept or the size is necessarily something that's...
Does the diagonal entrance,
I think it's unique. I think it's unique because it's a small lot and it addresses the corner. I think it could work. I've seen houses that address the corner in other areas, So you don't have to have a mid-block house on the corner necessarily. But you have to maybe do it right, a little differently. Normally the sidewalk would go from the entrance to the public sidewalk.
And I'm picturing other houses in Paseo that are on corners.
It may not be Paseo, I don't know.
In this neighborhood where this house is proposed, and I can't think of one that does not have the front door oriented to a number street, and the sidewalk going to the sidewalk that runs parallel with the street. There are no corner entrances like this one.
We're not trying to emulate every other house, and this is a unique circumstance. So I would say that just like the homeowner can't cite other houses as an example, this is a unique circumstance.
But I don't think the fact that it's a small lot makes it the only option.
It's not the only option, but I don't think it's ruled out.
Right.
Oh, really?
If it's done.
I would, if you want to hear some more comments, I'm not so troubled by the double driveway aspect, because getting cars off the street, particularly in a corner setting like this, would be good. And the only way you really get somebody to park off the street is to give them a parking place somewhere off the street. So I'm not as troubled by that. And, if my fellow commissioners all said, I think the diagonal front door is satisfactory, I'm not pushed one way or the other. It just, to me, doesn't seem to be designed in a similar way to other houses in that particular neighborhood.
I'm not sure about the 500 block, but I know I just drove down, I think it's 25th, 24th. there's a lot of variety of architecture, size, 2-story, 1-story, brick, frame. So I think you do have some more leeway on this particular area, in my opinion, than you might in an area that's very homogeneous.
Do the windows, the height of these windows, the appearance of a very tall window, do you think that's in keeping with that particular area? I don't see other...
The scale of that front window is pretty big for the overall... Right, the scale of that front window, the south-facing window, is really large compared to the totality of that elevation. And I think there needs to be some finesse that happens with the proportion of that large south-facing front window to the rest of the elevation. It seems really big. And I mean, it kind of appears that way, particularly in the rendering that you've done. It almost, it kind of dwarfs it extends above the plates on the eaves, and it seems really big.
What about the window on the west side? Is that the one on the south side is a bigger concern than the one on the west side?
No, I think we've talked about the one on the west side and the fact that if it's modified so that it doesn't read as a singular unit, and I thought we'd kind of talked about that, eliminate the trim and the things that make it connect. Because I agree, it does the exact same thing on the west side as presented here today.
I think the west side and the south side are both equally important.
Sure.
On the south, so...
Since it's a corner house.
Yeah, it addresses, especially if it has the diagonal, which means that those two sides are kind of equal.
Right.
Now, if you turn the entrance facing south, then the west side is de-emphasized.
Right, secondary to the south side.
Because I think that is one of my concerns, the disproportionate size of the windows. I don't necessarily have a problem with the corner entry. Maybe that entry, the awning could be toned down a little, and that would make it not as have such a big of an impact on it. But I think because the houses on that block to the east don't all look identical to this. The ones to the west vary tremendously. There's a lot of different styles on that 600 block. The 500 block is a little unique because they all look identical. And
one of the things that's identical with those is the front porches. They're across the front, they're full-length front porches, and there's at least 2 or 3 steps up from the sidewalk that goes from the street up to the porch. This one, and I'm just looking at the elevations, it looks like it's just really just one step barely. And to add onto my list, sorry Sam, that's one other thing that would bother me too.
So elevating the stem wall would be important to you.
Yeah, elevating the stem wall. Yeah.
What
is the height of the stem wall as it's proposed?
It's 16 inches. I don't know. It's in the foundation
I
plan. I don't know if I've turned it in.
It looks like one step, and I think I agree. Most houses are elevated steps.
Yeah, he could do a 18-inch, 24-inch step foundation. There's a grade change in the lot front to back so that the high point would need to be measured in the back. If it's 18 in the back, it could be 2 feet in the front easily.
Does it slope up to the back?
Goes up to the back, right, to the north.
That'll help with your
Drive.
grade change from the garage level.
Yes. So we would next, I guess, request a continuance then. The owner has consented to a redesign. Based on what you've said, mainly just twisting that front entry around. There is an issue, though, with respect to curving the sidewalk and so forth. The sidewalks can be straight. The only outdoor space available to this house is in front. That's it. There's no backyard, because obviously the backyard is the house behind it. So for that reason, the idea is to pave additional area in front of that front porch to sort of increase the amount of outdoor usable space for just outdoor living. I don't know if that creates a mess or some sense.
Well, if you raise the front porch, if you raise the floor up, raise the porch, have steps, they'll create, maybe it's that outdoor space with the porch.
Yes. Well, it wouldn't be covered. I can only, ordinance says I can go 4 feet past, with open on 3 sides. I can go 4 feet past the building line. I don't know that you want me to do that because there's a setback that all the houses acknowledge or are built to. So I'm thinking that we're going to be...
The The setback line is to the building line, not the porch line. Is that correct?
Building line.
Building line, so the porch
Right.
come out.
But these, as I gather, and I don't have surveys on the adjacent property, I just went over there and looked, but I perceive that our setbacks are at the porch on the adjacent houses. If you look down the street, there's some enclosed spaces, built spaces. The porches come forward, but only a very little bit where they do occur. So I don't know. I'll look into that. We'll verify.
Well, personally, I'd like to see something creative. It does need to fit in, but some of the ones in Jefferson Park that are just totally emulating the sort of craftsman style to me are wrong because it's too imitative of the old style. I like to see some variation, creativity. That's why I kind of like that. I think these comments are good. But
I would agree.
I just don't like when you just totally copy something because it's never quite the same. You know, it's not exact.
Right, and that's what we were trying to, I agree, and that's what we were trying to accomplish. We thought this was just a little more attractive,
Let's do a continuance, see if we can meet in the middle.
Okay.
And have
Sure.
something pulled back a little bit, but then still show that it's unique.
Okay.
Being there.
Sounds
So, when do you want to continue it?
Next month.
Next month? Yeah, working. Okay, do we have a motion for continuance to the February?
Move to continue to February 5th.
We have a motion for continuance on 13-194 to the February 5th meeting by Roland Tay. Do we have a second? Second. Second by George Massey. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
HPCA 13-00195 at 816 Northwest 39th Street, Crown Heights, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application of Brent and Melena Crandall for certificate of appropriateness to 1, demolish garage, elective, 2, construct garage, elective, 3, replace paving at garage, elective, and 4, install sidewalks at garage, elective.
Hi, I'm Brent Crandall, homeowner.
All right, well, let's look at demolition of the garage first.
So I'm okay with demolishing the garage based on what I've read in the staff report.
Absolutely.
That there are really no remaining historic features left. Constructing the garage as it is proposed, I feel that it's just too grand overall, too tall, more than 50% larger than the original.
Why don't we tear it down right now? Why don't you move?
I move to approve HPCA 13-00195. Item 1, to demolish garage with the specific finding that the proposed work will not have an adverse effect on the historic character of the district or property and is necessary because of an imminent threat to public health and safety and complies with all relevant guidelines and sections of the Municipal Code 2010 as referenced in Section D of the staff report.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, HPCA 13-195. We have a motion for approval of item number 1 by Neela Crane Clements. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by George Massey. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. With what? Nolan's not here.
I too agree on the design of the garage. It is extremely grand.
The height got a little bit bigger because we kind of oriented it north and south instead of, we lengthened it running north and south, so the gable is on the north side, and the brick was on the north side originally, so we planned on using some of the existing brick and blending with some other used brick we found. So that's, and the house has stone also on the gable ends, and so we're trying to complement the actual house on that north end.
Right.
So
And as
that's
a
why it
sec-
got taller too, is because that gable end is on the north side instead of on the running east and west.
And again, my only concern is the secondary structure. It shouldn't be as pronounced as the main house. And then,
Yeah.
In materials?
I think it's still smaller. I think we're okay.
Just a quick question, maybe of staff. I have the site plan that's proposed on page 5, but I'm having trouble finding the existing site plan that shows the garage. It is?
The existing garage is dashed in.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Yeah. How many square feet is the new garage?
A little over 1,000 square feet. 1,060 square feet.
yeah, the existing residence is 41 feet, and the garage is almost 39 feet.
It had a servant's quarters on the side, and the existing, or the new garage, the proposed garage would kind of take up that servant's quarters. It's actually narrower from east to west. And then I proposed to put a guest quarters in the back, and so that's why it's larger than the existing.
Is the existing house brick with a stone sort of?
Yeah, it's all brick with stone. The gable ends have the stone running up the sides, and then it has kind of a random stone pattern.
But it's brick. The new one would be to match the brick and match the stone?
Yes, on the north elevation. On the other elevations, I just proposed stucco. Because the east and west side already have stucco on it.
Missed that. Okay.
And the south side would be stucco as well?
Yes.
The existing garage had siding on it, though, correct?
On the south side, it had siding, wood siding. On the east and west, it has stucco.
Oh, that's...
So I'm not sure if it's original or not, but
Looks to be maybe an add-on to the existing garage.
yeah,
Here's that one.
Is that the servant quarters?
that's the southwest corner you're looking at. The door on the west is on the west side. And the height got that high because I went with that roof pitch of the house, which is an 8 and 12. And so when you get that wide with an 8 and 12, that's why it increased in height like it did. The house is, to the ridge line is probably 30 feet. The ridge line to the proposed garage is 17 feet.
You're saying the
Approximately
house
seven.
has a pitch of 8 and 12? It looks steeper. It looks like 12 and 12.
Yeah, the gable end that you're looking at is 12 and 12. The house runs east and west, and that...
On the sides, it's 8 and 12?
On the sides, it's 8 and 12. The lowest roof pitch is 8 and 12. And then those two are 12 and 12.
What is the height of the current roof?
I was guessing...
Of the garage?
Oh, existing garage? I think it's 13 feet.
What's the height of the current?
The current garage is 13 feet, so it would be increasing in height by 4 feet.
And the new one is what again? 17 feet. There it is, 4 feet. Increased by 4 feet.
Do the other commissioners feel that if the pitch decreased, it would help the size I mean, I don't mind that the 8 and 12 doesn't need to stay.
Doesn't mean what?
It can be reduced to like a 5 and 12 pit, I mean, so it seems secondary.
I don't have as much problem with the scale. I have more problem with the material change for some reason.
Right.
To me, the scale of this in the house, I don't say a problem. I like the pitch matches the side gable pitch. But I don't know about the stucco and the brick and stone. At least it ought to wrap around. Right now, it seems like it just stops. But the old garage is the same way. Was that brick added?
It looks like the original brick. It's the same color as the house.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you going to reuse? You're proposing to reuse?
Yeah, that's what I plan on reusing all the brick I could, and then I found some used brick, a small amount, to be able to do that north elevation, and with the stone, I could do it just on that north elevation.
So then, Alan, you're talking about the detail as it turns the corner, then, is that right? How do you make that transition at the corner from the brick and/or stone to the...
Well, I was just thinking of wrapping it around, maybe 2 or 3 feet or something.
But that's not shown in this, though, right?
No,
You're
I was
talking about a change.
Yeah, the fact that it's just like a plane.
It would look like a veneer,
Yeah.
which it is, but...
I always think that wrapping around for 2 feet, 3 feet's weird looking. It's like you wanted it to all be that way, but ran out of materials or something.
Well, that'd be okay, too.
After it all with brick and stone.
But I think wrapping at 2 feet looks less weird than not wrapping it at all. That's my opinion.
It's obviously large. Is there a consideration that you would reduce the size of this garage? Because I'm not sure if it'd be approved as huge as it is.
I think it looks bigger on the site plan because of, I mean, you're not looking at the elevations compared to the house. You know, the elevations compared to the house doesn't look as grand. I mean, to me it doesn't, but there's so much space behind the garage right now that's wasted space, and you know, from the front of the street width-wise, it would be, you know, similar. It's actually 12 inches more narrow.
I think the proposed size still drastically increases the amount of built space on the property. And I think our guidelines, I forget where now, you know, we try to avoid that in the historic districts. So, again, I just feel like it's too large.
If it's under 50% of the original, is that acceptable?
I think we've talked about that before, something along those lines. Does anyone remember?
You know, his next-door neighbor, I believe, to the east, just approved a story-and-a-half garage on the corner. Are you next to the corner?
4 houses over from the corner.
Down on the corner.
I think we've approved garages much more percentage of coverage than this.
There was one in Mesta in November, maybe, October. You remember, Ann? Katie, it was a garage she was proposing in Mesta Park. Was it a garage?
Yeah, it was
Gosh,
a garage. It was an
attached, an addition and a garage. Right. And then that's where we talked about less than 50%.
Yeah, that was kind of a goal of not increasing the square footage of the house by more than 50%.
Okay, so related only to
With an
the addition
So,
onto the
you could
house.
certainly still kind of apply that same concept to looking at a replacement garage, that you would only increase the size of the garage by a certain percentage. I don't think that's something that we've specifically looked at before, but we do try to, you know, as much as possible, stay close to the historic footprint of the garage and
historic size. And I don't think the plan as proposed stays near the historic footprint.
I think we've approved larger percentages than 50% expansion of a garage because of the need for 2 cars and workspace and all that kind of stuff, personally. I think we've done that because of garages. A lot of these garages are just so small and non-functional. If you look at the scale of this compared to the house, that's kind of unique. That's a way. It's, the house dwarfs the garage. I think this would look, in massing, but fine. As far as the footprint, I think it could be slightly narrower, slightly less, shorter. Maybe that would help.
But you're not seeing that additional space from the front because it's behind there.
So you can't see you won't see most of it from the public right-of-way.
Right.
Anyway.
Right.
But you will see that sort of the front-facing gable and the brick and rock, though. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think we have approved garages that increase significantly in size from a historic garage, although I would say in this case, I think their existing garage is not one that's dysfunctionally small. Sometimes we've done that when they had a really teeny tiny garage, but this is 2 cars with some additional space on the side. So that's one thing to consider. But like has been stated, that extra space on it is going to be back and behind the house where you're not going to see it from the front.
Right.
How far are you from the, how much yard is there from the back of this proposed garage to your back property line?
12.9.
It's a vacated easement, so 22,
To the,
a little over 22 feet.
to the property line?
Yes.
And then you've got an 8-foot easement off of that? Yeah. I mean, from a practical standpoint, there's not much you can do with the space behind here, even if you scrunch the garage up a little bit. I just, I'm not so troubled by the size of this, since it goes back toward the back as opposed to coming forward.
There are some 2-story garages on my street, and I thought about doing a 2-story, proposing a 2-story. My next door neighbor has 2-story. I mean, in that case, that would be doubling the square foot.
Glad you didn't do that.
Well, he has one abutting, so he's all right.
I guess that's what my question is, what is around him? I don't so much mind that it's bigger in the front, but it seems so much bigger, it almost looks modern, just in that it looks more like suburban housing today in the way that front gable, it's just its height and its mass. Not that it looks different, not that it looks unusual with your house in front of it, but does it then take on a characteristic as a garage that looks very different from everything else or from many of the other houses on the street? If a lot of the other garages are 2-story, then maybe this doesn't look unusual, but I'm missing that context because we're just looking at your garage and your house, and the staff have even said in their considerations essentially the same thing, that not knowing what's around it kind of takes this particular garage out of context.
Yeah, the house next door has a 2-story, but it's actually attached on the front of the house. There's a few 2-story houses on the street. There's some that are just small wood siding, oriented the different direction. It's really kind of a mixed bag on our street.
Would you have any less problem if if on the view on the front of the house was the same as the view on the current garage, so that the roof line starts at the garage and slopes back toward the back of the house? Turn the gable a different way?
Or if you just do a hip on the front, does that accomplish the same thing? Instead of seeing the end-on gable, if you saw the hip roof.
Right.
Right, it helps to diminish the...
Basically, the gable would turn into hip going back. You'd end up with a, well, hip roof.
Yeah, my house doesn't have any hip roof or anything on it. I don't know any of the houses on the street that have a hip roof. And if I
What about garages that have a hip roof? Seems like several of the small wood frame garages do have that. I don't know about your street in particular, but...
I mean, I suppose as a trade-off, you put a gable on it, it reduces the mass of the structure, but then it doesn't emulate the main house. So which is more important, reducing the mass or having it match to be similar?
Yeah, and since it's longer north to south, front to back, if I had a gable on the front and maintained an 8 and 12 or even 5 and 12, and that 39 feet, it would be probably a lot higher than I'm proposing now.
Seems to me from what you would see from the street, if you did a hip roof, you would get more of the view like you have now, and it wouldn't look as massive from the street view.
You need a lot less brick.
And if you wanted brick, you could perhaps move it over on the yard side some way, so you'd see the brick from your backyard, because presently you don't see the brick from the street, except the small trim around the edge.
I could change the ridge line. I just think that it would be, if we change the ridge line, the height would get taller.
So would you have an objection to just reducing the height of the ridge line?
No, I mean, I could change the pitch of the roof to reduce the ridge line, or...
I think what they're saying, keep it the same, but change the north elevation to be a hip only, just a little bit back, which reduce the mass, and keep everything else the same. You wouldn't be changing the pitch. In other words, the south elevation would look the same. Of course, you could even make that hip, but just kind of do that. And then maybe if you wanted to use the brick and stone on the west facing into the yard, I think that's what Roland said.
So
I don't mind, like that, but I don't really mind it personally. That's it.
So, if this is your street, the bottom of the sheet, this is your roof plan.
Okay, I see what you're talking about.
So it does this. The main ridge line still runs north and south.
And still the same height.
So you just take off that tall gable,
Okay.
whack it off like your 8, 12, or whatever your pitch is.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that. That'd be less brick and stone, too.
And so, if you've got a lot of brick and stone left over, maybe you turn that, as Roland was saying, onto your yard side, so you can see it from the house if you want.
Instead of the stucco.
Well, it's just whatever you want to do. If you like that brick and stone appearance, you could still have it visible from your yard. If you
One thing you could do is, it wouldn't be as much, but you could do this entrance into the work area out of brick and stone, kind of make it special.
Yeah, I thought about doing that if I could find enough of the brick, I mean, the stone I can find, the brick is what's kind of difficult to find.
If you do this, you'll have plenty.
Yeah.
You can gable that in too, and then you don't have the extra gable end. You have a hip end on that side of it.
On the south side?
Would you be willing to continue your case and work on some of those ideas?
Yeah, I could do that. I don't have a
For me
problem doing the
personally,
hip.
I'm not troubled by the size of your structure.
Okay.
Well, I happen to have an old existing garage that is with what had been the servants' quarters on the back is probably quite similar. But on 40th Street, our lots are a lot bigger than the 39th Street lots in terms of depth. So there's still lots of space behind it, between there and the...
So if we're asking him to go back on a continuance and put a hip roof in, is there something else we're asking that would appease the majority of the board members? Huh?
Well, I'm just telling,
Or may still
for
not
me
appease,
personally,
I'm
I'm not troubled by the size.
Oh, I'm not either.
But there are others here who may have different
I'm
opinions.
fine with the size. Size is fine for me.
We could take a vote. If somebody wants to make a motion, you can.
One thing that I would like to see you do is to put in a garage door that is a more traditional garage door, has the glass across the front.
We didn't
top,
get there.
That there happens to be one in this staff report. Or
What I wanted to do is just, it's on page 12, except that's a two-car garage door, but with no windows, no glass. Do a insulated metal door with wood, solid wood applied to it, painted.
Is this the photo?
Yes,
But you're going to have two, not just one door.
correct. Two 9-foot wide by 7-foot tall individual doors.
Will there be glass in it?
I don't want any glass in it.
Because the one on the other page that was circled had glass in it, I thought.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I confused Angela. I sent two different things, so.
Okay.
And it's really hard to find somebody who will provide something that shows exactly what I want. They'll make what I want, but so I just added that photo in there.
So you're proposing that the 52 would be proportional to the opening?
Correct,
They look like that, but small.
correct. So if we're talking about adding a hip at the front, is there any way we could approve with exceptions, or,
So you can move on?
excuse me?
So you can move forward on your garage?
Yes.
Staff is going to chime in and say that these are more changes than we're really comfortable being approved as a modification or a condition. This is quite a bit of change to the design. So we'd really prefer to have it come back and make sure the commission's happy with everything that's been
Just a
done.
hip, triangle to triangle. So,
I move, what now? Well, I'd like to see the new design. I would not vote to approve it with a bunch of conditions. No, I'm talking about the size, not the square footage. That's all I was trying to convey to him. I would move to continue the case. Do you wish it to come back February 5th, or do you want to go to March? Or maybe even April? I won't be here in April, that's why I keep smarting off.
I can do February.
So you know that the submission time is...
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Good, February 5th? Is that what you want? Okay. I move to continue HPCA 13-195 to February 5th.
do you want to move 2, 3, and 4, since you're not going to be doing 3 and 4 right now anyway.
Yes, excuse me, items 2, 3, and 4.
Okay. We have a motion for continuance on 13-195, items 2, 3, and 4 by Roland Tague. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ann Zacharitz. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate you improving our neighborhood.
Thanks.
Okay, other business? Seeing none, communications and reports?
We sent out in your packets a draft of revised guidelines, and then also followed up with the ordinance changes addressing demolition of garages, as we discussed in our November workshop. We have a workshop scheduled, well, tentatively scheduled for this coming Wednesday that people said they were available for, if folks feel like we need to do that to talk through all of these changes. But we can also address any questions, comments, concerns people have right now about those changes. And I'm happy to kind of go through them now, or if people feel like they want to wait and discuss in a workshop setting.
Why don't we give everybody time to review them, and we'll go. Has everybody reviewed these? Or do you want time to review them before next week?
I could just tell you,
we know you
3 comments. I think we ought to address 1.5-story garages. I think we ought to have a definition section for the word abutting, just to add to the definitions in the back. And I think that we, on storm doors, I just happened to look at storm doors, and I think we ought to somehow say that you can't have storm doors with lots of metal across the front, and we want full light storm doors. If you just look at that, you may say that's what it says, and we don't need to say that, but sometimes we get people who come in and figure out.
Yeah. On the garages, I'm going to look really quick because I thought we added that in, but it might have not.
You do that. You did change storm doors, but I just bring that to your attention.
So on garages, we added, in locations where 2-story garages are not allowed, a garage may be 1.5 stories as defined in the municipal code, so long as its design and height approximate the massing of a previous historic garage at the property or adjacent 1-story garages if no documentation of a previous garage is available. So the intent of that is that you could have a 1.5-story garage so long as it appeared to be a 1-story. But we can certainly look at that and make sure that that makes sense to people and that that's how everyone would interpret that. Abutting is defined in the code already, so I think we're covered on that one, unless we want to make up our own.
Which code, though?
It's in the, just the plain old municipal code definition section, chapter 59.
I think it wouldn't hurt to just put it in our section.
Yeah.
Because that's what we...
And I'll look at the storm door. I think we have language in there already about the percentage of glazing that's required and that it can only have one central meeting rail.
It says the bars will correspond with whatever the window, the door, how the door design is. But
okay.
Can we also consider, just this last case brings it to mind, you know, we talked about increasing buildable space when it comes to additions to houses, what the limit is or the suggestion is. Maybe we also need to consider that for garages, either additions to garages or if we're building new garages after tearing an old one down or something.
Yeah.
Okay, administrative approvals?
Nothing to report. Happy to answer questions if anyone has any.
Okay, withdrawals? City Council, none. Board of Adjustment?
On January 16th, the garage at 216 Northwest 16th Street, the commission denied that demolition. They have appealed that decision to the Board of Adjustment and are scheduled to go on January 16th.
Okay. Planning Commission, nothing. Municipal Council? Next regularly scheduled meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission is February 5th at 2 p.m. New applications for this meeting were received December 31st, 2013. New information on projects continued from today's meeting. The upcoming meeting must be submitted to staff by 4 p.m. Tuesday, January 7th. The next scheduled workshop for the HP Commission is Wednesday, February 12th, 11:30 to 1:30 at 420 West Main, Suite 900. Other items from commissioners?
So we are meeting next week?
Yes. This is our quarterly workshops that we voted on and approved the schedule for at the end of the year last year, but we added that additional one just to address the guideline ordinance revisions.
So there is one next week?
Yep.
Yes. That agenda, yeah. Citizens, have we heard? None. Motion for adjournment? We have a motion for adjournment by Ann Zacharitz, a second by Alan Brown. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay.
All in favor say hell yes.